The one piece of evidence they ignored for over 30 years was sitting in an evidence locker the entire time. The reason the district attorney just dropped the major charges will make you question everything. You have to stick around until the end for the shocking reason the lead suspect was almost released. This case is not what you think. On November 19, 1988, the morning air in Hayward, California carried with it the lighthearted promise of Thanksgiving break. In a modest home not far from Mission Boulevard, 9-year-old Michaela Joy Garrick sat at the breakfast table with her family. To her parents, Susan Murch and Rod Garrick, Michaela was nothing less than a miracle. They had struggled for years with infertility, enduring countless disappointments and long nights of despair before their prayers were answered. When Michaela arrived on January 24, 1979, in Oakland, she became the embodiment of hope fulfilled. For 5 years, they had wondered if they would ever hold a child of their own, and now, finally, they did. After her birth, siblings Libby and Alex followed, and together the family settled into Hayward, ready to plant roots in a city known for its warmth and community spirit. To the people who knew her, Michaela was radiant, bright, compassionate, and deeply obedient. Sharon, her mother, often described her as unusually well-behaved, a girl who listened carefully to every instruction and rarely tested boundaries. But like all children, she longed for freedom. That Saturday morning would mark her first taste of independence, and the beginning of a nightmare that would stretch across decades. Her best friend, 9-year-old Katrina Rodriguez, knocked on the Garrick's door with a simple request. Could the two girls walk down to the Rainbow Market to buy some snacks? Sharon's instinct was immediate and firm: no. The 1980s were scarred by a surge of child abductions, and California had become a place where parents lived with the gnawing fear of losing their children to strangers. Yet Michaela pleaded with her mother. She promised they would be careful, that they would be quick, and that she was old enough to handle it. Reluctantly, Sharon relented. She pressed a $5 bill into her daughter's hand and reminded them to stay safe. As Michaela stepped outside, scooter in hand, she turned to her mother one last time and said the words that would echo for years: "I love you, Mom." The girls made their way down the block, their laughter trailing behind them as they pushed their scooters toward the market. They parked them carelessly near the entrance and went inside, giggling over their choices before finally settling on Mountain Dew sodas, beef jerky, and cherry taffy. Innocent treasures for a holiday afternoon. They walked back out, chatting about their plans, but soon realized they had left their scooters behind. One was missing. Confusion turned to urgency as they searched, until Michaela spotted hers a few spaces away, resting beside a car. Without hesitation, she ran toward it. The trap snapped shut. A man burst from the vehicle, wrapping his arms around her waist, lifting her off the ground. Michaela screamed as she kicked and fought, but her small body was no match. Katrina, paralyzed by terror, watched as her friend was shoved into the back seat. The car screeched out of the lot and vanished down Mission Boulevard. In an instant, a child had disappeared into the abyss. Katrina ran inside the store to tell cashier Rona Lynn, who wasted no time calling the police. Back at home, Sharon was scrubbing dishes when her husband Rod burst in with frantic words. Michaela had been kidnapped. They raced to the store, where chaos had already descended. Police swarmed the lot. Customers murmured in shock. 9-year-old Katrina, inconsolable, was led away by her father. For Sharon and Rod, the nightmare had begun. The investigation took off immediately. Rona, the cashier, described the abductor as a man in his 30s with a mustache, driving a burgundy or maroon car. Within hours, sketches were made, posters were printed, and the description spread across police stations and news broadcasts. But when investigators revisited Katrina, she painted a startlingly different picture. The man, she insisted, was much younger, maybe in his early 20s. He had long, dirty blonde hair, scarred skin from severe acne, and piercing blue eyes that she remembered with chilling clarity. His gaze, she said, was like that of a fox, sharp, predatory, and empty. The car, she recalled, was tan or beige, box-shaped and damaged. That contradiction unraveled the investigation. Precious hours were lost chasing the wrong man, and Michaela's abductor grew more distant by the minute. Despite the confusion, efforts to find her expanded rapidly. Volunteers distributed flyers. Police scoured nearby parks and canyons on horseback and foot, combing through Niles Canyon and Garin Regional Park. Helicopters equipped with thermal cameras searched from the air. Hikers reported finding footprints, one adult, one child, leading to a blanket and discarded food containers in a wooded area. Yet every lead collapsed into dust. Michaela was gone. Her disappearance quickly captured national attention. She became one of the first children to be featured on America's Most Wanted. Her photo was broadcast on Unsolved Mysteries, printed on milk cartons, and sent on more than 50 million mailers. Even San Francisco 49ers quarterback Joe Montana joined the appeal, pleading for her safe return. A $70,000 reward was raised, and tips poured in by the thousands. Sharon and Rod clung to every whisper, every call, every promise of a sighting. Sharon herself chased leads as far as Russia, desperate to find her daughter. Yet none of it bore fruit. For years later, an Indiana inmate named Roger Haggard injected new hope into the case. He claimed he had helped bury Michaela's body in a gladiolus field in Union City. At first, investigators dismissed him, but when he reached out to the San Francisco Chronicle, the story exploded into the public eye. Haggard was flown to California, where he testified under oath and led investigators into the field. After 8 hours of digging, nothing emerged. Haggard confessed he had lied. He claimed he only wanted to give the Garrick family closure. Instead, he gave them false hope and another wound that never healed. For this, he was sentenced to additional prison time and ordered to pay damages to the family. Other suspects soon came into view. Among them was Timothy Binder, a sewage plant worker whose behavior sent shivers through the community. He had been accused of sending young girls letters and gifts, some written backwards so they could only be read with a mirror. He drove a van lined with children's drawings and Bible verses, its license plate reading, "Love You." Parents in the East Bay whispered about his unsettling interest in missing children's cases. Most disturbing of all, Binder had written to authorities predicting that the next child to disappear would be a 9-year-old girl. Weeks later, Michaela was gone. Despite these red flags, nothing concrete tied him to her abduction. Binder even inserted himself into the Garrick family's grief, contacting Sharon and offering his help. He became a pariah, sued for defamation, and eventually won his case. But suspicion clung to him like a shadow. The years dragged on. In 2000, serial predator Curtis Dean Anderson confessed to abducting and unaliving multiple girls, including 7-year-old Shanna Fairchild from Vallejo. He hinted at other crimes, claiming to have unalived more than a dozen women and children. Some investigators wondered if Michaela was among them, but Anderson died in prison in 2007 before providing clarity. Later, in 2012, Wesley Shermantine, one half of the murderous speed freak life-takers, suggested his late partner Lauren Herzog resembled the composite sketch of Michaela's abductor. He led authorities to a well where thousands of bone fragments were unearthed. Some wondered if Michaela's remains were among them, but confirmation never came. Each twist only deepened the fog. Through it all, Sharon Garrick carried the weight of a mother's endless search. She turned her grief into words, launching a blog called Dear Michaela, later renamed Seeker's Road. She wrote letters to her missing daughter, holding conversations with the child she never stopped believing she might see again. She answered every phone call, every knock, every rumor. As years turned into decades, Sharon's health began to fail. In 2019, she was diagnosed with metastatic cancer. Her hope shifted from reunion to acceptance, imagining Michaela not as a lost child, but as a spirit dancing on clouds, walking among stars. Then came December 21st, 2020. More than 32 years after Michaela vanished, the Hayward Police Department announced a breakthrough. Fingerprints taken from Michaela's scooter in 1988 had been re-examined with advanced technology. They matched a name that had been hiding in plain sight, David Emery Mish. Born in 1961, Mish's life was a chain of violence. At 16, he was already maltreating women. In 1977, he attacked a maid. In 1979, he was charged with false imprisonment and assault with a deadly weapon. In 1988, the very year Michaela disappeared, he was arrested for burglary and served only 6 months. Later that same year, Margaret Ball, a longtime friend, was found beaten and wounded so brutally that one of her teeth was knocked out of her mouth. Mish was convicted of her unalive and sentenced to prison. Decades later, DNA evidence linked him to the double homicide of 18-year-old Michelle Xavier and 20-year-old Jennifer Dewey. He had slipped through the cracks again and again, a predator shielded by chance and failure of the system. For Rod Garrick, the arrest brought mixed emotions. He drove over 100 miles to attend the press conference, admitting he felt relief but also torment. Relief that someone could finally be held accountable, but torment that Michaela's body was still lost. For Sharon, the news broke her fragile acceptance. In her statement, she admitted she had not pictured Michaela as a dead child until then. 2 years later, in May 2022, Sharon died, carrying the weight of unanswered questions with her. Katrina Rodriguez, now living in Texas, has never escaped the guilt of that morning. The scooter that lured Michaela was hers. She has lived her life believing she should have been the one taken, haunted by the memory of her friend's screams and the fox-like eyes of the man who stole her. Even as the case seemed close to resolution, another twist came. In 2023, Alameda County District Attorney Pamela Price announced she was dropping the special circumstances charges against Mish. Without them, he no longer faced the death penalty or life without parole. For Michaela's family, friends, and advocates, it was a betrayal. For child safety activists like Mark Kloss, father of Polly Kloss, who was abducted and unalived in 1993, it was an outrage. For legal analysts, it was reckless. Yet Mish's defense attorney welcomed the decision, calling the forensic evidence junk science. Once again, the case teetered on the edge of uncertainty. The story of Michaela Joy Garrick is not just the story of one child. It is the story of parents who fought for decades, of a friend who never stopped blaming herself, of investigators who stumbled again and again, and of a justice system that only caught up when technology left no other choice. It is a story of false leads, cruel hoaxes, and suspects who slipped through the cracks. It is a story of a mother who died without the peace of knowing where her daughter rests. And it remains, even now, a story without an ending. For Michaela's body has never been found. For Rod and for Katrina, for the community of Hayward, for every parent who sent their child out into the world with a warning to be careful, the disappearance of Michaela Garrick is a reminder of how fragile safety truly is. It began with a girl asking for independence on a sunny Saturday morning and became a tale of heartbreak, failure, and unanswered questions that stretches across generations. The case of Michaela Joy Garrick remains one of the darkest, most twisted stories in American crime history. A story where every turn revealed another betrayal, every answer birthed another question, and every hope dissolved into shadows. Now that you've heard Michaela's story, how do you feel about the justice system's failures over 3 decades? What do you think about the arrest of David Mish and the later decision to reduce the charges? Do you believe true justice was ever served for Michaela or her family? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more untold true crime stories.